Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. Dear listener, I hope you're well. It's feeling like crunch time for many folk in terms of stepping into what they really want to do and how they would like their lives to look. There's a lot being revealed, both personally on an individual level and outwardly in the world. Going inwards at the moment and paying attention to how our body responds to different situations, and particularly listening to our bodies when decision making, is a greatly valuable tool at this time. During the years that I studied healing with Martin Brofman, he would talk about the relationship between ourselves and higher selves being a duo working together for a shared intention, where one being was in the watchtower and the other was on the ground driving. They would communicate with each other to achieve the aim. Are we always listening to our higher selves? Perhaps not if we're struggling to meet daily demands and listening to what external sources of authority or direction givers are telling us we should be doing. But if we get minutes of quiet time in the day and tune into how our higher selves, or in other words, our spirit, is guiding us, we may experience a smoother journey or a different path. Often, those around us who love us can be that external direction giver, and sometimes it's our own limiting ideas of what we should be doing based upon years of conditioning. Now is the time to listen inwardly and practice recognizing that inner sense of direction. It will inevitably be directing you to situations and activities that you love and that are good for your well-being. I am beginning to offer distant healing appointments again, as it's something that I've really missed doing, and so I'm following my own inner guidance here. If you would like to know more about that, you can check out my Scarlet Healing link on scarletofthefay.com and contact me there. I would like to thank all the wonderful supporters on Patreon, the Curious Crew, for holding this project with their love and ensuring its existence. We have a Patreon Zoom coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and on Sunday, June 25th, there is an in-person meetup in the Cotswolds. Really looking forward to that. We are hoping for a walk, a picnic, and maybe even a pub. We are 2 weeks into our Shamanic Qigong course with Todd Group, which is so well timed. I feel like everybody in the group is noticing how much they needed it at this time, and there's some really kind of powerful stuff happening. So yeah, that's been perfectly positioned at this time of year. This episode is part of a Wollaton special, which initially released on Sunday evening at the usual time as a video on my YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with the Wollaton Gnomes encounter, here's a short explanation. On the 23rd of September 1979, 6 schoolchildren reported encountering 30 gnomes driving noddy-type cars around Wollaton Park, near where they lived in Nottingham. It had taken place around 8:15 p.m. while they were playing in the park. After a series of events where they appeared to be interacting with the gnomes, they ran from the park, and some of the younger children appeared to be traumatised afterwards. Upon return to school, the headmaster tape-recorded separate interviews with all the children. They answered a number of questions about their experiences and gave detailed descriptions of the gnomes. This transcript still exists and is available in the link on the show notes at scarletofthefay.com. In the following days, local and national press released articles about the incident. The case eventually went quiet. To date, the witnesses have been unresponsive to multiple appeals to discuss the event. In 2022, Dr. Simon Young published a collection of essays about the Nottingham Fairy mystery, which I contributed to, along with some other researchers, including Dr. Jack Hunter, Dr. Neil Rushton, and Kate Ray. I've put the link to that book called The Wollaton Gnomes and Nottingham Fairy Mystery on the show notes also. Neil, Kate and I recently took an expedition to Wollaton Park, and in the YouTube version I've included a short film about what we did there. We were also joined by Glenn Boddice, who is a medium. So it was a really interesting trip. We had a lot of fun. If you're interested further, I'd recommend going and watching the film. And please do subscribe while you're there to the Modern Fairy Sightings YouTube channel, as it really helps the project. But effectively, we aim to connect with the landscape and sense out the areas where events may possibly have taken place. At the end of our Gnome Wander video, we hold a debrief session in that YouTube link, which took place a couple of days after our trip. So I will be sharing here that debrief session, the audio version, in this episode. We plan further expeditions to the park later this year, and I will produce more episodes about the Wollaton case later in the year also. But in the meantime, if you'd like more details about the case, I highly recommend Dr. Simon Young and Chris Woodyard's episode about the Wollaton Gnomes on their brilliant Boggart and Bansheet podcast, and I have put that link also in the show notes. Kate Ray and Neil Rushton also produced an episode about the Wollaton case, and they also chatted with Dan Green, who is a contributor to the Wollaton book too, and that is available at Hare in the Hawthorn on Kate's YouTube channel. And Kate will be releasing a gnome-themed novel set in Wollaton Park in June this year, 2023, which is very exciting, and I can't wait to read that. I will share more details of that as and when it releases. So, watch this space for further action in this area of the Wollaton mystery, and I hope you enjoy this episode. The project itself is experiencing something of a transition at the moment, with some exciting activities on the horizon and in the pipeline. The shifts taking place at this time in the world can be both exhilarating and overwhelming, so as always I'm reminding myself that a good course of action is to keep doing what you love, even if that doesn't tally with other people's ideas of what you should be doing. Stay true to yourself and always remain curious. Time to Hello folks, the three of us are here, myself, Kate Ray and Neil Rushton, and we are fresh from a trip to Wollaton, so we thought we'd get together. Kate's also going to share this too, so if you want to introduce as well, Kate, but yeah, it's exciting to be back with you here.
It is. I mean, coming together and doing a collab on, podcasting is just going to be fantastic. And we've got loads of ideas to throw about after the weekend and lots of different questions about this particular case. So it's going to be super exciting to start unpicking that as a three. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
Very exciting indeed. Neil, what was it like to spend the weekend with Kate and I, sort of bossing you around?
That's right. As the sort of the male in the group, I just sort of kept my head down, let you two do all the bossing around and telling me what to do, and just follow
you
me
loved it. You loved it.
It was great. It was a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, we'll be able to unpick a few of the aspects of it here today. But it was a little bit of an eye opener for me, because I'd never been to Wollaton Park before. And so just going into that landscape fresh, knowing what I know about the story of the Wollaton Gnomes, and having done, a load of research on it and written about it several times, to suddenly be there brought a whole new dimension to it, which again, we'll unpack that here.
Definitely. Can I just say, for those who don't know, because there will be some people watching this who aren't aware of what the hecky peck we're talking about, going into a park, what were we doing in a park? So we've all been researching for different reasons, but coming together for Simon Young's book on the Wollaton Gnomes, initially doing some research about the curious case of the Wollaton Gnomes, which is a very evidence-based fairy encounter that took place in 1979 in Wollaton Park, which is in Nottingham, where a group of children kind of trespassed, I suppose, into Wollaton Park at dusk and came across these noddy type characters that were driving around in hover cars, which is the basis of it. If you want to catch up on that, There's the book there. Joe's holding up the books. So if you want to catch up on that in a kind of in a research aspect, this is a really good book. I'm not just saying that because we're all in it. Well, I am just saying that because we're all in it, but it is really good if you want to do the research aspect. If you want to know more about the Wollaton Gnomes, there's lots on the internet. I know myself and Neil have done a chat about it in the videos below. So have you, Joe? Have you caught up and done anything on your podcast about it yet?
I think I may have done that. Yeah, I did. I did do that. I read my essay to patrons. That's what I did. I think what I was saying earlier was that having visited there now and rereading all of the research, it's just an entirely different thing altogether to now have met that landscape and to know it even a little bit, because we didn't get to see all of it, did we? But it just brings everything to life, doesn't it? It really does kind of allows you to see through the eyes of the children to some degree, because you're kind of at least partly familiar with the landscape now.
Definitely, and I think we're all in that kind of childish frame of mind as well, in the best possible way. It was a good fun weekend, and although we were there to do some field work and some research, it was nothing with a serious edge, which it just led to me for that anticipation of what we were doing, and that little bit of naughtiness of trespass that we did ourselves, kind of heightened the situation. So we did also have along with us Glenn Boddice, who is a medium and a psychic, and he did a recording for us. So at some stage that footage will be out and about, hopefully. So Neil, do you want to just say how we started off the day? What kind of plan did we have? Did we have a plan?
Oh, it was planned like a military operation. Okay, didn't you notice?
Yes.
Okay, it was a bit of a jolly. That was one aspect of it, absolutely no doubt about it. And it was a very pleasant day. And as you've just mentioned, Glenn, okay, I think Glenn added a lot to that day. He's a genuine psychic, and we perhaps went into parts of the park that we wouldn't have gone into if he hadn't been tapping into some of the vibrational energy in those parts of the park. So thank you, Glenn, not just for his film work, but for also adding an extra dimension to the day. As I said before, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because as much as you read the accounts of the children from 1979 when this incident happened, and even looking at maps and finding other things out about Wollaton Park, as well as all of the other encounters that happened both previously to 1979 and afterwards, being there added so much. And we do need to go back again, because we only had a few hours there. It was a bit rainy. It wasn't ideal conditions, and it would be really good to go back there and hone down on some of the areas that we went. So let me just say something about that. Is putting my archaeological hat on. The part of this project needs to be some pretty hardcore landscape archaeology. And that includes things like map regressions, so that you go back through the historical maps. It will be looking at documentary evidence from the last 200 years of how that park has developed over time, because I think that's one of the keys to understanding, for one thing, where the incident happened. And I think pinning down exactly where it happened is quite important, especially if we're going to go back with perhaps not just Glenn, but your good selves. I'm as psychic as a plank of wood, so I will look at it from one perspective, but that psychic, empathetic perception of the areas is good. And if we can pin down from the archaeological historical evidence where this happened, that will sort of give us a bit of a razor view of the incident. So in respect to that, I haven't yet done that intensive research. I will, because it's part of this project, and like, you know, I'm an archaeologist, and so I guess I'm the person to do it. Now, just one thing that I want to really point out is that we went in most parts of the park, but we went to the southwest of the park, which is a marshy area, and this is very important to the story because the kids, some of them fell into a marsh, and they described it as I think they describe it as a swamp. And there is really at the moment only one area in the southwest of the park that matches that description. There are discrepancies in the children's descriptions about where they got into the park and where they exited the park. Whether we, you know, that needs a little bit further investigation. But this area where we went it's very difficult to describe without the visuals. But basically, it's a swampy, marshy area. But there are also historical archaeological features, most importantly, an embankment around this area. Now, I have no direct proof of this at the moment, but I would suggest that several hundred years ago, that would have been a fish pond. Those kind of embankments were only made for fish ponds, and the age of the trees growing upon that embankment suggests that it was formed several hundred years ago. And I would say definitely as a fish pond. Now, I would say maybe in the 18th and 19th century, it would have ceased to be a fish pond and to become maybe a duck decoy. For those of you who don't know what a duck decoy is, it's not very pleasant, actually. It's an area of water which is contained so that the ducks come and roost in that area, and then some aristocrats go out and shoot them. Mm-hmm. So it's not very pleasant, but that's a duck decoy. So I think that area, fish pond, duck decoy, and then at whatever point that duck decoy became disused, it reverted into that swampy, marshy area of land, about about an acre of land, I would guess, where we visited last weekend. So that's what's interesting me at the moment. There's loads of other things I could say about the more esoteric parts of this story, but I think if we ground it in that kind of, you know, good solid historical landscape archaeology, then we might be a little bit closer getting to the bottom of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all said that we wanted to do some overlaying of historical maps to look at the land. Joe, what kind of things highlighted for you over the weekend? What kind of things stood out? What kind of things were new that you didn't kind of expect to come out of the visit?
Healing has helped me many times in my life when I'd reached a point where something needed to change. In 2005, I trained with Martin Brofman to learn the body mirror system of healing, which was life-changing for me. It's based on the idea that the parts of your body that don't work well reflect the parts of your life that don't work well, and about which you have tension in your consciousness. The understanding is that tension is stress, and stress causes symptoms. In a distance healing or in-person session, I move up the chakras, returning each one to wholeness using a colour map. During the process, I see images and situations, I hear words or receive impressions that tell me something about what caused the tension in that person's life. The feedback at the end of the session is a really big part of the healing. If you're interested in a chakra healing session, you can contact me at scarletofthefae@gmail.com. I think what was really exciting for me was, I talked about, in the essay that I wrote, I talked about communing with the land, and I talked about liminality, as well as kind of the history of the land and what it had been used for before. And I did actually at the time overlay some maps. So I got some interesting, really old ones, having a look at what was around there before, which was not very much, but there was always a site there. So when we were having a good old walk round with Glenn, as you say, Neil, he was really, really tuning in. And Kate and I, we do the same, really. We kind of tune into place. What I found very interesting at one point was the part that Glenn was getting, he was getting a sense of F off from it. And I kind of made my way round to enter that bit. And I couldn't get there because it was just so marshy. So I was going this way and then I'd have to double back, and going that way, have to double back. And then, I finally did get in, but I had to pass a really smelly part. There was a very offensive smell coming from the ground. So that was a definite kind of keep back, really. So I'm nosy enough. So I did make my way around eventually, just to see sort of, because you were all kind of grouped there, and see what was happening. And then after that, we sort of took a little walk, and when I saw the gap in the fence and looked through and saw the hue of the bluebells, it really called to me. And as you say, we did then trespass a little bit, because we went through that gate. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about trespass isn't illegal unless the landowner prosecutes, and actually prosecution very rarely gets the go ahead for that. And the fact that, I mean, we were very respectful, of course, of the environment. So
absolutely, it was calling. There's no two ways about it. In the same way that other little piece of the landscape was saying back off, this one was saying come in. And we all felt it then we went in there. It was a beautiful space to look at, but also the feeling of it in there. And there was one particular tree that was quite I can't actually remember what it was. I'm not sure what it was, but the character of that tree, it was quite a substantial, fairly old tree, and it seemed to kind of hold that space. And I enjoyed sort of meeting with that tree and some other trees. And then when we found, like further down, when we walked and found the swampy area, well, for me, that just, it felt a very magical setting, and kind of going back to this idea of liminality that I spoke about in the essay that I wrote. It ticked all the boxes. The feel of it felt magical. The information that you provided, Kate, about the fact that the wall was running along at the back, I didn't know anything about that, about the situation of it. So, it kind of all links in. But most strong of all was this feeling that it gave off down there, and the way that we came in through a way that we might not have done had we followed the path. We were invited in, and we were led to that spot from a particular way, sort of through the magic door, if you like. We went through the magic door. So yeah, I think for me it was, firstly, I think, great to meet the park and the various aspects of it, but also to all be together and to see what each of us kind of brought to it. And Glenn as well was a big part of that, and even your partner Graham, and oh gosh, the doggy's name,
Wilma.
There's Wilma trotting alongside, and yeah, I just felt that it was great. It was a really great weekend. It was a really great day there. Like Neil says, it was raining a bit, so that was a bit of a shame, but we got through it, and I look forward to getting back there and having another bash, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, the rain was a blessing, because it meant less people. True. Which meant there was an element that we had the park not to ourselves, but people were sporadic. I've been there before when it's been absolutely ram-packed, and all the kind of walkways around and about, there's just so many people. I think from hitting the ground running, we all gathered to have a drink and go to the cafe and whatever, and we came out after meeting Glenn there, and it was like instantly, Glenn was drawn to a particular tree that was just footsteps away from coming out of that cafe area. And that set the tone, really. It was, we started thinking and chatting about pareidolia, aspects of not just the esoteric, but of also, having more of a critical thought about things. And we discussed things like, is pareidolia simply pareidolia and what our eyes are picking up, or is it spirits of nature pushing through these trees and what have you? And I'm sure Joe and I will share with you at some point a photograph that was taken that has exactly that in it, and it's a question mark of whether it's pareidolia or whether it's actually little people. So that'll be exciting to keep your eyes peeled for. And then we went on to that area Joe was just discussing with that Glenn definitely felt like there was a really offensive vibration from that area, and he picked up on what he described as a hoggle type character from the labyrinth that was not impressed with us being there, and it was telling us to back off. Now, usually when that happens, and I think it is my ghost hunter element to me, my paranormal research element, I get quite excited and quite giddy about the aspect of going into a place where I'm being told to F off. So I was quite excited to be in there, and I'd never do it disrespectfully, but I poke the bear sometimes, if you like, with that kind of thing, and think, why do you not want us to be there? There's got to be a good reason. And we were chatting around a fallen tree, that quite a large fallen tree, and that seemed to be the centre of where this energy was coming from. And I actually randomly found a geocache, which piqued my childish interest in the day and sort of added to that excitement. As we've been talking about, we all got drawn into this area with the most ultraviolet bluebells just blooming. And I think there was a different sense. There was a sense of calm in that first part of that wooded area. It was definitely calm. And Joe, the tree that you were talking about, I've got some lovely photos of you, and you actually look like a gnome because the tree's that big. It's that big that you look quite small next to it. So we spent some time chatting in there. I think for me, the whole weekend, the essay that I wrote in Simon's book was about there is more questions than answers with this, and the more we get into it, the more questions that I have, of like Neil suggested, it's about the children. Is there terminology about what a swamp or a marsh is different to ours? I've been questioning, what was the weather like leading up to that particular incident? Did it make areas of that land more marshy, more boggy? There are so many questions that have come out of this. It's unbelievable. And I think for me, one of the aspects is going to be trying to find people who lived in the area at that time and asking them about what they remember about the landscape of the park, because I think that's going to be really important as well. So what's for the future for you both for this? Where do you want to head with it? What do you want to do with it?
I think that we will obviously go back, and like I say, we need to do a little bit more of an intensive study of the whole park. But I think part of this, I've been talking about landscape archaeology and historical map regression, which is what we need to do. But certainly for me, the weekend showed that there is nothing to replace being within the landscape on site and just picking up those intuitive feelings. Because I know I said I'm as psychic as a plank of wood, but when we were in that marsh area, I knew I was on the cusp of an altered state of consciousness of some sort. And it was, I wasn't able to go into that fully because I was with you lot. You were putting me off. But and
it's nothing to do with the mushrooms that you were eating the night before.
Well, yeah, that may have changed everything completely. And well, we're among friends here, and I will say that if I went there on my own, having taken a small dose of psychedelics of whatever sort, I think that may have taken me over the edge, because I felt just intuitively, empathetically, however you want to phrase it, that is a special area. We've been talking about, the beauty of the bluebells, the feeling that it was in an inviting place. When we got to that marsh area, there was something there. There was just something there that we weren't ready to tap into completely on that day. But I think this is important. This is part of the new modern research in order to try and put yourself in the position of those children. Obviously, we can never do that, but you can do it to a certain degree. You can do it with you can tap into a bigger consciousness of which they were a part. And if that place is special enough, and that place is special, then you might be able to get something out of the story that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, and which, to be honest, so far we haven't quite got there. So I'm just saying that we definitely need to go back, and we probably all need to take LSD before.
I think you're going to be on your own with that one, mate. My days are well and truly over.
I can offer an alternative, and it's something that I I sort of explored when we were there, but I didn't really kind of go full way with it. But I started collecting nettles when we were under that first. Was it a what was it?
I think it was a chestnut, wasn't it?
Chestnut tree,
where are you talking about?
You know, the first
one.
big beautiful tree with the red leaves.
Oh, was it a copper beech?
No, that's a copper beech.
That was the copper beech. That was the copper beech tree. Yeah. So, I started collecting nettles there, and what I like is to collect, say, some nettles, maybe some cleavers. Obviously, it depends on the time of year. Dandelions, whatever's growing at the time, and coming home and making some kind of tea, because I feel like then, especially if we could get some round where that swampy place is, or we could do a little experiment. We could get some from the beautiful Hugh place. We could get some. I collect some from the Copper Beech, which I felt was a welcome as we entered the park, really. And then we could get some from the magical area. And we could, taste those, because I think in the same sort of way that you can go into different states with psychedelics, you can use just these plants from those particular areas and ingesting them. It's a communion. It's a form of communion. So that's one thing I think would be really interesting to do, and just to do it and then compare notes afterwards. What you're feeling, what are you getting, any sensations or messages or visuals or anything like that. The other thing we could do, which I think might be interesting, is to go to those spaces and maybe we could get a bit giddy and chant or do something that is playful. Movement would be good. Because the gnomes, by all the descriptions, they like laughter. They seem attracted to children's joy. And I know this, I've seen this before. Okay. If a child loses themselves in play, which you can get through, running and going in a circle with each other and chanting, and that is fun for adults too, if you let yourself go. I think that would be a really good way of getting into an altered state as well. So as an alternative to psychedelics, this is something that might be available to us. And, we can just play with it really. So I'm up for that. I'm up for that when, we get together again.
Can we do both?
You could absolutely do both. Absolutely. I think, this is a kind of more accessible for everybody. As I say, like Kate, I haven't done psychedelics for many years. So
not that we're promoting the use of psychedelics.
No,
absolutely not. Absolutely
I like the idea of a tea ritual, and I think as an add-on to that, what I'll do is because I'm the closest, I'm half an hour away from site. I think what I'll do is go down, maybe just after summer solstice and do some picking. See what's down there: dandelions, nettles, cleaver, whatever. I'll see if there's any mushrooms, Neil, that aren't going to kill you, and just do a recce as well. I want another recce, and I think you're absolutely right about bringing that childish element. I think one of the things that occurred, because we were so excited to be there and to be together, because it's the first time that we've sort of been together on the ground and doing the field work, it kind of made it a very strange energy level between us, because we were excited to do the research, which is a very adult thing to do, but we're excited to be together. And for me, I was in sensory overload, which was just brilliant. It was great company. We're all there for the same reason, beautiful surroundings, and I was not really able to focus on the feeling of things. So like you, Neil, saying that if you'd been, had the opportunity, and I think as well as that playful element, Jo, I think, having the opportunity after that maybe to sit down, and I know we all do this, but meditate and just zone out into that space. So yeah, we should all definitely get back together sooner rather than later and go down and do that. I was just saying though earlier on today about this is an exciting aspect for me, is about I'm a field researcher, that being a paranormal investigator, it's something that I do where I'm in the field researching. It's very rare that you can get the opportunity to do extensive research as you would do with a fairy encounter. So backgrounds, you just do background searches on land and on building, but it doesn't generally, it's not as substantial as it is within fairy investigation. So it seems to be a flip side with a fairy investigation, where people, and quite rightly, there is a substantial amount of research in a bookish sense, where you sit down, you go through books and you go through maps and whatever else. But actual field work, I think this is going to be hopefully an infectious side to the Fairy Investigation Society, where I know people are going out in the field and checking things out and what have you, but being able to report back on it in a serious way, and have it added to the academic swish and melting pot of things that's going on around different encounters. So yeah, it's exciting, and I hope we can expand out and do some more. So if anybody's got any suggestions about cases that you'd like to see us all going out and trudging around in the rain with our anoraks looking like scout leaders, then let us know. Drop something in the comment and say you should go. I don't know. Oh, let's go up to Scotland, and it'd be nice to get some very rich person to fund us on that. So if anybody's listening, they've got a couple of million stashed away that you want to send us off on wild goose chases, then please do.
Wild gnome chases.
Yes, we are the gnometeers. We are the three gnometeers. So any last thoughts to round things up?
That's my thinking face.
No.
Yeah, you caught us out with that one, Kate.
Sorry.
I think this has been quite useful to, as with any field work of whatever type, whatever discipline you're talking about. You can't just go out, do the field work, and then just disperse and do your own thing. So getting together like this is extremely useful. It's just another cog, another movement forward to what has been quite a long drawn out project in all of its manifestations and all of its aspects. So this I see as the next stage, because the next thing I will do is get my archaeological hat on and really sort of start thinking a little bit seriously about this, and try to just try to map things out physically and mentally in terms of what was happening in 1979 and what we can find out about it and how we can put a load of detail onto it. So that's
sorry, Neil, I just had a vision then of you in some bell bottoms sort of wandering around Wollaton next time we go, just getting into that full-on 70s vibe, just to pick up.
I don't mean to name drop, but I'm going to name drop in that I was very good friends with Professor Mick Aston of Time Team.
Oh, yeah.
who died in 2013. And we did several little landscape projects, and I learned so much from him. As far as I'm concerned, he's the primary landscape archaeologist of the last 100 years. He was fantastic, and I learned bags from him. So I'm gonna put this into action, and Mick would have loved this project. He'd have dismissed the fairies. Well, that's a load of nonsense, but this landscape's absolutely fascinating. So let's go and investigate it. So I will put on. I will take what I've learned from the late great Mick Aston, and I will really get into this. This kind of gets my this gets my undercurrents going, because I haven't done it for quite a few years, and I always used to love it. I used to love this landscape archaeology stuff, and so you can leave that to me. I'll get on with it, and that will. I think it's important. It gives a substratum, that kind of very physical, material way of looking at this project. It gives that substratum, and then you can build all of the more esoteric, occult, whatever you want to call it, stuff on top of that. And I think that also helps for anyone coming from the outside who's a little bit unsure. Oh, fairies. Do I really want to think about that? Gnomes. This is all just a bit of nonsense, isn't it? As soon as you give it that bedrock of a kind of academic understanding, then those people will be more likely to come on board, and they won't think we're just a bunch of nutcases. They'll think, well, actually, these people actually might be getting a little bit close to the truth, whatever that truth is.
I can say I'll go full nutcase and take care of that side of things by I feel drawn to maybe connecting in with the area, asking permission from the gnomes there, or the beings that exist there, about us coming back, and creating some kind of poem, chant. That's often in ritual, especially by myself. That would be how I would connect with whatever work I'm doing. It will be through voice and song and repetition. So I'll have a go at that, and I'll maybe create something for us that we can explore the next time we get together there. And do a lot of tuning in, as I say, and I will keep you posted about that, of how that's looking.
Brilliant. So I think I will remember to take my paranormal equipment next time. I think we were too busy for me to take any tech down there. I think if we can get some baseline data readings in the different environments for EMF, do some EVP work, so electronic voice phenomena, see if we can get anything back from that. That would be very, very interesting. So again, adding to kind of a portfolio of building up a picture of yes, this is definitely somewhere where gnomes are. I also think that it's going to be important for us to start exploring the psychology of the children. So I've got a background in education. I can maybe call on some people, ed psychologists or teachers, to discuss. It takes a pretty strong-stomached head teacher, because the head teacher did believe and record an interview the children about this, which is one of the aspects that makes it such a strong case. And it's, from my knowledge, and I've worked in many schools around this county in particular, I can't think of one head teacher now that would do that would be like, yeah, I believe you, I'm going to record you, and I'm going to support you in the fact that journalists are going to come along, etc. So that's another aspect as well that we can look into, is what kind of psychology was going on behind that. I'm super excited to get back there. I kind of want you guys to come back down next weekend or something, and all trip off down there. But I'll do a couple of recce's in the meantime.
Can I just add that just while I'm thinking about it? I mean, I don't want people to think that it's just Joe, Kate, and I doing this. This is,
Yeah.
we are maybe the sort of core of the project at the moment, I guess. But well, obviously Simon Young he's the person who really started to investigate this in any kind of depth. So there's him, there's Maeve and Dan doing the dowsing. Glenn, who we've already talked about, and there are many other people sort of on the periphery of this, and maybe some more people will come in with different skill sets who can offer something else to it. This isn't a call to arms for anyone to sort of get involved, but I think the bigger the team is with coming with all kind of different disciplinary specialities, the better the project will be.
Yeah, definitely. I think we will drag people in kicking and screaming and say, you are coming gnome hunting with us, and they'll be sold. They'll just go, yes, I want to come gnome hunting, and off we go. I definitely think a big shout out for Simon Young, the fairy godfather, for getting us all together and sort of setting us on this path of the Wollaton Gnomes and giving us the opportunity to write for that book, which is really cemented, I think, a lot of people together under the Fairy Investigation Society. So well done, the fairy godfather, for that.
Very much so. Yeah, good stuff. And look forward to what comes next.
Me too.